What's up, everybody? Welcome to the What the World Needs podcast. My name is Tori Franco, and I know I've been missing. I don't even know what episode this is. I don't know, maybe 28 or something like that. Don't quote me because I have no idea. I've been gone for quite some time. I have not uploaded a podcast episode in I don't even know how long. I've been just trying to figure out exactly what I want to talk about. I want to have Alexis on the podcast as well because we have some things we want to talk about too together. But in this episode, I'm going to be talking about mental health and therapy. I want to say one of the last episodes that I did was about depression and suicide and everything like that and getting help. I know it's not the last episode, but it's one of the more recent episodes, if you could even call it recent, because I haven't uploaded an episode in a very long time. I'm very inconsistent. I have a lot of things going on. I'll do an episode on that. But in this episode, I wanted to talk about in the suicide and depression episode, I talked about therapy, seeking therapy, and I talked about how it's hard to find a good therapist. It's hard to find a therapist who can help you and who's good for you because everybody's different. And I think I alluded to the fact that I have a couple of stories regarding my personal journey to finding help. And right now, I am in therapy. And I love my therapist. This is probably the best therapist I've ever had. But I did want to discuss my journey and some, maybe not horror stories, but things that I never thought I would come across when it comes to therapists, licensed social workers. You know, these are people who go to school to learn how to help others and to learn how to strategically make other people feel better about whatever emotional trauma or emotional situations they're going through. And I learned, unfortunately, the hard way that some therapists out there are just doing it for the money. And they're just doing it for the wrong reasons. Not because they genuinely want to help people who have whatever issues they have. So I guess I'll start with the beginning, my depression. My most recent fight with depression started about 2 years ago, and I was really in just a very dark, bad place. And I knew that I needed to talk to somebody. I knew it was time to reach out to somebody and try and get help. So I reached out to this counseling center. And I started seeing this woman therapist. And at the time, I had come out of work on short-term disability because my job at the time was definitely contributing to my anxiety and depression. So I felt it best to maybe take a sabbatical. So I'm talking to this woman and I'm talking about how my job is definitely a contributing factor amongst other things at that point that were contributing to my depression. And the entire time she was kind of just trying to push meds on me. And I had told her from the very beginning, I don't want medication. I do not want to be on antidepressants. I don't want to be prescribed Xanax. I don't want these things because I'm not comfortable taking them. And I know firsthand how your brain can become dependent on these substances. And I didn't want that. To me, in my opinion, and there are people who need medication. So don't get me wrong. If you're on medication, don't think that you're doing the wrong thing. There are people who genuinely need medication. I just felt for me, I was not one of those people. For my case, I wasn't at that point. And I felt like I could do it on my own. So every session, and I maybe went to, it was once a week. I maybe went to like 8 sessions with her. And every single session, she was trying to push medication on me. And it got to the point where it started making me feel really uncomfortable, where I felt like I had to lie to her and tell her, okay, yes, my doctor prescribed me something, just so that she would get off my back. So that's what I started doing. I started lying and saying, okay, yeah, I'm taking whatever medication. Fine, whatever. Because she even gave me a sheet of paper to weigh out the pros and the cons. So it just from the beginning seemed as though she didn't want to do her job and do, behavioral therapy or whatever it was that I needed. She barely spoke to me. And anytime I would speak, if I was being long-winded or something like that, or talking about something emotional, I would notice, and I understand that some people just have weird facial expressions, but I would notice her eyes just going like this and starting to close, as if she was like falling asleep while sitting in her chair. So she wasn't listening, and I knew that just by reading her body language. She was not listening. Not only that, she wasn't giving great feedback. She wasn't giving feedback at all at times. She was just basically making me feel like shit for being in the position that I was in. And trying to like manipulate me to go back to work. Instead of saying, okay, well, what is it about your job that's causing you anxiety and depression? What is it that you have to face? Okay, well, maybe try and do that. No, it was literally like, I at one point told her I didn't feel like certain people around me respected me. And she said, well, of course they don't. No, that's actually another therapist who said that. I'll get to that bitch. Anyway, so this woman basically would like verbally knock me down for being in the position that I was in. And I like positive feedback. And I like positive, constructive criticism. I can take it. I'm not a weakling. I know how to take constructive criticism. I want that. That's what's going to make me better. I don't want a yes person who's going to yes me to death and tell me that I'm just right all the time, and that's not going to help me or change or help me to change. So by no means whatsoever am I sitting here saying she didn't yes me to death. It was the other extreme where I left feeling worse than when I went in, because she would basically beat me up. It wasn't nasty really. It was more so just like her trying to manipulate me into going back to work, as opposed to her just doing her friggin' job. Not to mention, she would literally sit there and eat her dinner while we were talking, which to me was just so unprofessional. So after 8 sessions with this moron, I finally was like, I'm done. I can't, you're not helping me. I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling better. You're not giving me any exercises to go home with. Like, even when it came to my anxiety, I told her I can barely leave the house at that point. It had gotten to the point where anytime I left the house and went somewhere unfamiliar, I would have a panic attack. I would have an anxiety attack, feel dizzy, feel my heart, like, you know what I mean? All these things. She didn't even give me like breathing exercises, which is like a typical thing to do, Oh, okay, this is what you do. I had to talk to other people in my life and get, like who were going through similar situations and oh, well, my psychiatrist told me to do this breathing exercise. Oh, well, great. My therapist didn't tell me about that. You know what I mean? So it was just, I'd become fed up with her. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to look for another therapist. So I did. And this one was closer. Another female, older female. The one prior to her was also an older female. This one was closer in distance. And I felt, you know what? Let's give it a try. So I went to her. The first session was, actually, let me backtrack before I get to this debacle of a situation. Let me just say that obviously my insurance was covering all of this. And I was paying a copay. This initial counseling center had said, your copay is $20. And I said, that's fine. I would pay, whatever. At first, when they checked my insurance, they said, you don't have a copay. I was like, great, I don't have a copay. Then all of a sudden, they hit me with like a $180 bill or something like that. And I literally paid it right up front because I had the money, and I was like, okay, fine. If I have a copay, I have a copay. Whatever. So clearly, my insurance was giving all of these providers or whatever, healthcare providers, the wrong information at first. And then I guess, a couple of months or a month and a half would go by. They'd recheck their records and be like, wait, no, she actually does have a copay of $20, $25. So this is the first incident, right? So now I switched therapists to this idiot lady. And I'm basically trying to, again, talk about the same exact things that I was talking about with my previous therapist, because the previous one did nothing for me. Squat. Absolutely nothing. So this woman, the first session actually went pretty well. I honestly, genuinely thought that she was, I got a good feeling. Like maybe it was just me being hopeful, hoping that this was the one that was going to help me finally and be proactive in helping me. And that was the first session. And then I want to say the second session, I had told her, I don't feel respected by people around me. I don't feel like people look at me as an equal. And she looked at me and she said, well, of course they don't. You're not working right now. You're on disability. And I'm not even exaggerating. I wish I was, but I'm not exaggerating. She literally looked me dead in my eyes and said, why should they respect you? You're on disability right now. So I thought things were getting better. I was trying to seek better, but this one actually ended up being worse. She said something else to me along those lines too. Then she tried to tell me that I was basically an alcoholic and other things. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, no. Like, she was like, well, have you ever blacked out when you were drinking? And I'm like, no. She's like, well, how would you know? You'll never know. I'm sure you have. And if you have, then you're an alcoholic. And I'm like, oh, okay. Sure. Then she said something else extremely degrading and nasty in that same session. And I forget what it was, to be honest. Thankfully, I forgot what it was, because I know it was something razor sharp and like, ooh, that hurts. And I told my family, but I can't think of it right now. But this was basically the same type of situation where I was going in, talking about my situation, and just literally being degraded. And in my opinion, you're supposed to, if you see that your patient is not maybe doing the right thing or whatever. Oh, that's what it was. She looked at me and she said, and I'm pretty sure it was in the same session that she said, of course they don't respect you. She looked at me, she goes, are you sure you're not milking this? And I was like, milking what? And she's like, your depression. Are you sure that you're not just milking it? And I looked at her and I was like, nope, I'm definitely sure I'm not milking it. Like, at that point, I literally in my head pictured getting up, pouncing on her old ass and punching her right in the face. How do you look at somebody who's coming to you for anxiety and depression and with a clear conscience say, are you sure you're not milking this? What? Like, I don't care what profession you're in. I don't care how much schooling you've been in. You have no right to say that to somebody. You just don't. Just because I'm not coming in moping doesn't mean that I'm milking it, whatever the hell that means. So I think I went to maybe 2 more sessions with this crazy old bat and then finally stopped seeing her. And now when it came to the money situation, the copay situation, the same thing had happened. But I started seeing this woman in, I want to say, January or March, like the new year. I started seeing her. So when she called my insurance, she had also gotten the same information that the previous place had gotten, that I didn't have a copay. And she was sure. She was like, I spoke to your insurance. You really have good insurance. You don't have a copay. I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. In my brain, I figured, oh, it's a new year. Maybe my insurance changed, because my copays used to be $20, and then the new year came, then they were $25. So I figured maybe something happened behind the scenes, that now it's the new year, now it's January or whatever, or the new year, and my insurance changed and I didn't have a copay. You're the health provider. You're coming to me and telling me that I don't have a copay because you called my insurance. Why would I argue that, right? So keep that in mind. So I stopped seeing her in April, and I start seeing a male therapist who was, a good friend of the family, had told me about him and said, he's really good. Go check him out. I love him. So I started seeing him in about April, and I loved him. In about June, around my birthday, the end of June, I get a letter in the mail. And it wasn't a generic letter. It was a personal letter directed to me from my previous therapist, basically accusing me of lying, of not telling her that I had a copay when I knew very well. This is what she tells me. I knew the entire time that I had a copay, but I never said anything. This is literally in the letter. Unfortunately, I got so angry that I ripped it up, but she basically was demanding payment. I owed her I think $175 or something like that. And she was demanding payment for the copays, the whatever I owed, and at times how many sessions, whatever it was. But she's accusing me of basically trying to stiff her. And again, as a therapist, as somebody who deals with people's mental health, whether you took my situation seriously or not, which I don't know why you wouldn't. Obviously, if I'm sitting in the chair across from you seeking help, there's obviously some sort of issue that I need help with. So maybe you should be a little sensitive to that. But regardless, then you're going to turn around 2 months later and basically accuse that person and be completely defamatory and shit on that person's character because you're an old, bitter bitch, basically. Excuse my French, but the situation makes me so freaking annoyed. So she left her number to call if I had any questions after she had demanded payment for this $175. So I called her up and I said, hey, blank. I'm not going to say her name because, I'm not an asshole like she is. I could absolutely put this video out there and every local human being in my area could literally just know to beware, steer clear of this woman. I'm not going to put it out publicly. If you want to DM me and you're in the area looking for a therapist, I'll give you this one's name so you can literally make sure you never go and see her. But regardless, because I'm not out to ruin anybody's career. Regardless, I called her up and I said, hey, we'll call her Jerky. Hey, Jerky, I just received your letter in the mail. And she was like, oh, you did? Like, so trying to be so sweet. Meanwhile, you're the devil's incarnate. I said, yeah, and I just wanted to let you know that I didn't appreciate you accusing me of lying to you and being dishonest and knowing that I had a copay and just allowing you to believe that I didn't have a copay, as if that would help me in any way, because obviously the insurance companies are vultures. They're going to catch up with the money at some point. So why would I allow you to believe that I didn't have a copay? So I was like, I honestly didn't appreciate that. I'm not that. I would never take somebody for a fool at all. I'm not that type of person. I would never do that. I'm not a liar. I'm not a cheat. So I genuinely didn't appreciate that. And she was like, well, I'm sorry your feelings were hurt. I said, my feelings were hurt. I said, you completely insulted me in that letter. And I would appreciate you never sending a letter like that to me again. But regardless, because I'm an honest person, I will send you something. You'll get your payment as soon as I have it. Click, and I hung up on her, right? So then I want to say maybe 2 more months goes by. And at that point, I was like, honestly, I'd forgotten about it. And I was like, I'll get around to paying it. Like I'm not going to rush paying her just because now I'm going to be passive aggressive, which probably isn't the best thing to do. But you know what? You don't degrade people. You just don't. Especially if you're in the industry of helping people with mental illness, you don't make it a point to degrade people. You're supposed to help. I'm not saying that means you need to be taken for a fool or you need to be had or you can never stand up for yourself because you're dealing with people who are emotionally sensitive or whatever it is. But maybe don't degrade them and, I don't know, I'm trying not to be too vulgar, stop being a bitch. And then maybe you'll have better outcomes. I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, 2 months goes by, August, maybe like beginning of August. She sends me another letter. This one I kept, but it's in my files somewhere. Basically being a manipulative twat, excuse my French, saying, when we spoke on the phone earlier, as if she was trying to like build a case against me. She was trying to like document in her letter what she had said to me and what I had said to her in the letter. She goes, when we had spoken on the phone earlier on June, blah, 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 you had said to me that you were a person of your word and that I would get the payment. And 2 months have gone by and I still haven't gotten the payment. So if you really are a person of your word like you say you are, I expect payment. This is literally like basically verbatim. I know she said, if you really are a person of your word like you claim to be or something like that. And again, I'm not even exaggerating. This really happened. This is a therapist, a licensed social worker with a degree and a license speaking to a patient, a former patient. Like, is this real life? Is this real life? So at this point, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to rip this letter up in anger. I'm going to save it so I have it for my records because obviously I can tell she's keeping a record or a tally of all the interactions we have just in case she has to take me to small claims court for $175. Take your $175 and shove it right up your ass at that point, right? Anyway. So I decided instead of calling her, I'm going to write her a letter as well so that I have my own proof of contacting her. So do I have the letter on here? It's got to be somewhere on here. In the letter, I should have gotten the letter. In the letter, basically, I alluded to if she continues to harass me, I'll take her to court. And if she continues to be defamatory and speak in a defamatory way, I would take her to court. I didn't say I'll take you to court, but I said I would appreciate, this is a cease and desist. I would appreciate if you never contacted me again. And also, if you do need to contact me, you refrain from speaking in the defamatory way that you are speaking to me, basically. And yes, although I feel as though you are the healthcare provider and you should have done your due diligence to get the correct information, and when you got the incorrect information, you should not have come to me and blamed me for that and accused me of being a liar. And while I understand all of that, I will absolutely, in good faith, pay you once a month, $5 a month. again, I have the money to pay her, but I know for a fact, by my previous history of working in collections and my sister working in collections, that as long as you're making some sort of payment, you cannot be taken into collections. They can't put you into collections. So, okay, if it takes me 35 years to pay off $175, by all means, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of getting all $175 at the same time so you can go and buy groceries for the week. Screw you. Don't degrade people. Don't be a twat. And maybe I would have paid you in full. Actually, absolutely, I would have paid you in full. So I said, okay, because I'm a person of my word, and that is the truth, I'm going to pay you $5 a month from here on out, starting this month. So I sent her a check with the letter, certified mail, so that I knew she got it. And began paying her $5 on the first of every month, right? So I think a couple months went by, and I forgot to pay her the first of one of the months. It was like, I think the 5th of the month, and I completely forgot to send the check out, which again was not purposeful at all, because if you know me, you know that I'm not somebody who stinges out on bills. Bills are important to me, and paying my bills on time and diligently is very important to me. Thanks, Mom. Anyway, so one of these months I just didn't, it was like 5 days, it wasn't even a week. I get a text message from her saying, basically, just wanted to know where the check was this month. I haven't received anything. It's the 5th of the month, and normally you send it the 1st of the month. So, if you haven't already sent it out, I would appreciate you sending it, or something like that. Honestly, that may even be too nice for what she said to me. And I said, and then in that same text message, she goes, and I don't know why you're spending so much money on stamps when you could just pay it off in full. She's like, do you know how much money you're wasting on stamps? Basically saying, like, why are you mailing a check out every month for $5, spending 50 cents or whatever it is on a stamp every single month, when you could just make one bulk payment and not waste that money on stamps? So I texted her back and I said, this is what I said to her. I said, how I choose to pay you is my business and my business only, and you have no right telling me how to pay you. So I would appreciate if you don't even go there. I said, and your check is and your check is on its way. And she goes, no, she texts me back, no need to be rude, Tori. I was just saying, she goes, I was just saying. And I said, kind of like the way that you were saying that I'm a liar in your first letter. I said, so how about this? Don't say any more, okay? Because your check is in the mail. Have a nice day. And then I didn't even give her a chance to respond. I literally blocked her. And now I make it a point on the first of every month, sometimes at the end of the month, to just send her check out. And my mother keeps telling me, just send her like $20 1 month, I refuse. I could literally pay her off right now, but I refuse. If she wasn't such a horrible human being, and I felt like it was just a genuine misunderstanding, and she understood, and she handled the situation in a professional, compassionate, humane way, she would have gotten her money in August of last year when this whole thing started. But because you want to degrade people, and you want to defame people, you want to make people feel like shit when you have absolutely no idea what they're going through, because you didn't even take the time to listen to what that person was going through before you started judging them. Because of that, she's getting her $5 once a month. And that's that. That's it. I keep a tally of it, and that's that. So that was the second therapist. The third therapist was the male therapist that was recommended to me by a good friend of the family. He was awesome, incredible. My insurance changed and I had to stop seeing him. He tried to help me out, but the price just wasn't right and I had to stop seeing him. And I went a couple of months without seeing anybody and then finally got new insurance and now am seeing this new therapist who is literally in the same town as me. I don't have to travel anywhere. She's right around the block from me. She's amazing. I liked my previous therapist before her, the male. She's probably more proactive and I don't want to say this, but like better for me than he was. And he was awesome. So it's saying a lot about her, not trying to take away from him, but I'm just trying to give her credit where credit is due. But the moral of this story is therapists are people. And just because you have a degree in mental health, and you know the technicalities, does not mean that you know how to deal with people who have mental illness. And not all therapists are superhuman beings who are sensitive to mental health issues. Clearly, the two prior to me finally finding somebody good were degrading and twatty, to say the least. So don't be discouraged. Had I not continued trying, I wouldn't have I could have given up hope. You know, I could have absolutely said, screw this. There's nobody good out there. I've already been to 2 that are absolutely horrible to me and for me. I'm not even trying anymore. But then I wouldn't have found the good guy. I wouldn't have found the guy who actually ended up helping me. And, you know, once that fell through with insurance, I could have also given up and been like, screw this. I'm not even going to try anymore. I'm not even going to seek out help because all therapists are about whatever. It's about insurance at the end of the day and whatever. But I wouldn't have found who I'm seeing now, who, to be honest, I can't picture myself not seeing her. She's just incredible and still just helping me with just everything, really, making me see things in a different way or putting things in a different way that I already knew, but like validating certain things. And it's a good feeling. So I definitely wanted to just let you guys know my horror stories or story when it comes to seeking therapy. And I also was watching videos today. I was watching this YouTuber. Her name is Joy Sparkle BS. She's a smaller channel, maybe like 40, maybe 14,000 subscribers. And she's, I guess you could say, maybe like a commentary channel. I don't want to call her a drama channel. But she was calling out, maybe a little bit of drama, but she was calling out this YouTuber, this gay male YouTuber. I forget his name. Let's see. I'm gonna look it up right now. YouTube. Joy Sparkle BS. Here she is. Peter Mon is his name. And apparently he's this YouTuber, but he's also a licensed therapist or psychotherapist. And in the past, I think he does commentary, I'm pretty sure. Like also drama commentary. Hi guys. Oh, sorry. I think he also does drama commentary. But she goes into, in one of her videos, actually she's doing like a whole series about this guy, because apparently he's a psychotherapist and he wanted to help her with all her issues. And then when she reached out to him, he basically took her issues and her DMs and read them on his YouTube channel out loud to like make fun of her. And that's, again, not something that a psychotherapist does. So she read these comments or Twitter posts that he put out, back in like 2009, 2012. And you know what? Who knows? He could have changed at this point. But to me, the shit that he was saying about his clients, he was airing dirty laundry out and just talking a lot of shit about his therapy clients and being just a disgusting human being, basically acting as if him having clients was a pain in the ass and annoying for him. But like, you signed up to be a psychotherapist to help people, and now you're posting, he didn't give any names or anything like that, but now you're posting about them on your Twitter feed as if they're not human beings. So you're being fake. So that's what sparked this. This particular guy is basically using his profession as a psychotherapist to gain clout, it seems. Or he was. I don't know if he still is. I mean, up until last year, he apparently claimed that the YouTuber Joy Sparkle BS has a mental disorder, and he apparently, I don't know who this person is. I've never seen any of his videos, but he apparently claimed that he knew that she had a mental illness and he wanted to help her. So he made a video saying, I want to help you. And then when she reached out to him, he blasted their private conversation in another YouTube video, making fun of her. So to me, it doesn't seem like much change has come. And normally I don't get involved in YouTube bullshit because that's what it is. It's YouTube bullshit. People do shit for views and whatever. But when it comes to mental health and you, again, degrading somebody because you feel you have power over them because they're coming to you for help emotionally or mentally, that's when it pisses me off. And I don't give a shit who you are, how many subscribers you have. If that is the type of thing that you do, you're a piece of shit in my book. So I just wanted to mention that. That's basically what inspired this whole thing. Obviously, something like that situation that Joy Sparkle BS was talking about hits home for me because of what I've gone through on my journey seeking help. And I'm not ashamed. You guys know I'm not ashamed to talk about it. It's not something to be ashamed of. If you're in therapy, you're seeking a therapist for whatever reason, whether you're bipolar or you're just depressed or you're anxious or you just feel you want to be proactive and talk to somebody, you want to better yourself because you notice certain things about yourself. Whatever the reason is, don't be ashamed of it. It's not something to be ashamed of. And if there are healthcare providers out there that are degrading you in some sort of way or not helping, it is your prerogative to A, speak up and defend yourself, and B, go find somebody better and somebody else. It is your right to not have to deal with it just because they are licensed and they have a piece of paper that says that they did all that they needed to do does not mean their word is God or gold. Remember that, because if you do come across a therapist who is degrading you like the ones that I had, you don't have to take that. You don't have to deal with that. That's not truth. Just because they have a license doesn't mean that everything they say is the truth. Just as doctors, just because doctors are licensed doesn't mean that doctors always get it right. At the end of the day, everybody's human, and human error is a thing. A very, very, prevalent thing. So don't for 1 second think that if you're seeking therapy and you're in therapy and your therapist is making you feel like shit for your disorder, for what you're feeling, or they're trying to water down what you feel, or making you, trying to manipulate you into thinking that, oh, am I milking this? Maybe they're right. Don't. That's not okay. That's not right. That's not moral. That's not ethical. As a healthcare provider, you are allowed to help that person face their demons, and if they're doing something to hurt or harm themselves, hinder themselves, you are, as a healthcare provider, allowed to address those things, but it's the way you address those things in a non-degrading way that helps. Because if that was the case, then I'd go to my neighbor or somebody I don't really know, tell them all about my problems, and have them look at me and judge me and call me a piece of shit for everything that I feel. And that would basically be the equivalent to seeing your ass. You know what I mean? That's why you have that license, because you are licensed to deal with these certain situations in a sensitive, compassionate, understanding manner. Again, nobody is saying that as a therapist, you have to sit there and agree with everything that person does. If that person's on drugs, if that person is mooching off their mom and refuses to get out there and get a job, whatever it is, you're allowed to address those things professionally. That's fine. My therapist now does not yes me to death. That's probably one of the best things about her, is that she doesn't yes me to death. But when it comes to the things that I've been through in my life, she does not judge me for those things. She does not make me feel like shit for those things. If I make a mistake, she points it out, but in a very compassionate and understanding way, as to not hurt my feelings or make me feel like shit. So that's what a good therapist is supposed to do. Not only that, I know a very close person to me is in therapy with this same person. And if I so much as mention this person's name, she looks at me and says, I can't talk about it. She's that professional. That is what a therapist is supposed to do. You're supposed to protect your patients. You're supposed to, any healthcare provider, you're supposed to protect your patients. That means not tweeting about them. That means not sending defamatory, degrading letters to them. You're supposed to protect their health. That's like a doctor, doing surgery and cutting something that he shouldn't cut and being like, oh, well, whatever. No, like you're going to be proactive. If you do something wrong, you're going to be proactive in making sure that that person's health, and their health is in your hands, is taken care of. That's what a good provider does, period. You protect your patients. Alexis protects her patients. She does not talk about the people's lives that she saves. She does not talk about their family. She does not talk about their mannerisms or what this orifice looks. She doesn't do that. Why? Because she's professional. And that is what a professional provider does. So if you're out there, if you're a therapist, or this podcast is about mental health. So I'm going to stick to that. If you're a mental health care provider and you're airing that person's dirty laundry out, even if they're late to a session and you're complaining about that on your social media, you should have your license revoked, period. No questions asked. That is so unprofessional. That's literally like a teacher getting on Facebook and being like, oh, I'm not going to name names, but this one student is such a fucking asshole. What? That teacher would be fired in a heartbeat. You can't talk about your students or any patient like that on social media, whether you're giving names or not. Who are you? What kind of human being are you? You signed up for this. you know? And though this particular therapist that I had did what she did to me and tried to degrade me, luckily I'm strong-minded enough to know who the fuck I am and what kind of person I am. I'm not too proud to admit that I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I will continue to make mistakes in my life, but I am willing to learn from those mistakes and make changes to better myself for myself, but for others around me. And I'm on that path, and I will forever be on that path, because as long as we're human, that's what we do. We make mistakes. We do stupid things. That's inevitable. That is an inevitability. You are bound to make mistakes. You are bound to fuck up. That is okay, as long as you understand that when you do fuck up, you try to learn and fix. That's the journey I'm on. I've never felt better doing that. You don't beat yourself up. It's not okay to do that. Reflect, right? But when you are looking at somebody and degrading them, and you are in this position of, truly, essentially power, you're in this position of power over that person, and you know that. Not to mention, you know that that person is emotionally at that point and mentally weak. To manipulate and degrade in any way is totally uncalled for. Should never happen. And I don't even know how this person got their license, or these people get their licenses. Do we just give licenses, like social worker licenses, to anybody these days? I don't even know. But you just don't morally treat people that way. You don't treat anybody that way. You don't know what the person's going through. Whether you're a therapist or not, you don't treat somebody that way, because you have no idea what demons they're fighting. And your degradation could lead to their demise. Tread lightly when you want to treat somebody like shit, or you want to treat somebody like they're not a fucking human being, because you have absolutely no idea what they're going through. Because this face that you see, this smiling face that you see all the time, may not always be smiling behind the scenes. Period. And I'm not even just saying me personally. Anybody. We all hold our emotions and carry our emotions differently. We express our emotions differently. Some people don't express emotions because they don't know how to. Just because they don't doesn't mean that they're not feeling something. Those depressed people, the depressed comedians that we hear so much about. Robin Williams didn't wear his emotions on his sleeve. I'm sure, though, if he had a therapist that looked at him and said, "Are you sure, Robin, that you're not milking this? You sure? Because I don't see it on your face. Are you sure that you're depressed? Because, I don't know. Seems like you're milking it to me." I'm sure that would have led him to commit suicide a little bit fucking earlier than he actually did. So again, tread fucking lightly. This is a public service announcement to all you mental health care providers out there. Don't be a douche, okay? Your license means shit to me if you have no compassion for other human beings. Your license is just a license. It's just a piece of paper that says that you went through the jumped through all the hoops that you needed to get that license. Guess what? I have a driver's license. Doesn't mean I'm a great driver. So that's it. That's all. I wanted to let you guys know my experience, my issues with what I've heard today about this one person that I honestly couldn't even tell you what he looks like. But to me, it's that shit, I don't take that shit lightly. I don't. And you as a healthcare provider shouldn't either. So there's that. You know, if I can be in the biggest depression of my, the deepest, darkest depression of my life and still treat people with compassion, then I think you as a healthcare provider can also do the same. But I digress. Anyway, I'm gonna call it quits here. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'd love to know what you guys think about all of this stuff. I know from talking to you guys that a lot of you guys have either close family members who deal with mental health issues or are yourselves dealing with mental health issues. How do you guys handle it? Have you guys had the same experience with therapists? Does anybody, I'd love to hear your horror stories if you have some. I'm sure there are some out there. This is another episode of the What the World Needs podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know. What else do you want me to talk about? I have some things that I need to get off my chest. Love you guys very much. Until next time, stay real, stay smiling, stay wonderful. Peace out, everybody.